Inner peace, inner peace. Our battle ended 500 years ago.
Well, now I'm ready for a rematch.
Took you long enough.
Sidegrades. In gaming, this term refers to a weapon or item that differentiates itself from other options by having unique advantages but are balanced out by some kind of drawback. As the name suggests, these are not intended to be direct upgrades and are instead a lateral option, encouraging and rewarding an alternative playstyle. Call of Duty Mobile is no stranger to this concept, even if the devs don't do a very good job at balancing them. A great example I can give is with the Oden. This gun has a statistically similar counterpart, that being the Lag 53. Unfortunately, when this gun was first added, it was, without a doubt, the worst assault rifle in the entire game, suffering in pretty much every relevant stat. It did receive some buffs which actually made it pretty decent, but for the most part, it was basically just a worse version of the Oden. But with the Season 11 balance changes, this is no longer the case, as now, the lag has an actual niche, and a pretty strong one at that. So in this video, I shall be speaking in defense of the Lag 53. But as per usual, we'll start by talking about what changed with the weapon. The lag has received 3 buffs in total. Its bullet impact has gone up from 1.4 to 1.6. This now beats the ICR Macro Mag for the highest bullet impact amongst fully automatic assault rifles, allowing it to deal more hit flinch. Next, its initial BSA has been significantly improved, going from 14.8 to 8. The lag didn't exactly have bad BSA, but this is still a welcome change, as one of the more annoying parts of the weapon was the subpar initial spread. However, these two are nothing compared to the final buff the lag has received. Its lower arm multipliers have been increased from 1x to 1.05x. This change has no impact on its 2-tap consistency in the initial damage phase, but where it starts to become useful is in the second damage phase. Previously, you required both of your shots to hit the torso, which was pretty unrealistic since it was very easy for one of your shots to hit the arms. But now you can land one lower arm shot and still 2-tap, meaning that it is actually achievable now, and is effectively a massive improvement to its 2-tap range. Now we can actually talk about the weapon itself. I shall be comparing the Lag 53 to the Oden, more specifically with the passive build since it is statistically closer. If you're curious as to what the build is, just watch my Oden video at this timestamp. So let's begin with their lethality. Both the Lag and Oden are extremely hard-hitting weapons that feature very similar time to kills. The Oden does kill a bit faster at 145 milliseconds, but 150 is still absurdly fast, and beats out pretty much every other fully automatic weapon. But this is pretty much the only thing these two weapons have in common. The first difference is in their damage multipliers. In the initial range, the Oden requires at least 1 chest shot or 2 arm shots to 2-tap, while the lag only needs 1 torso shot, which includes the chest and stomach. This makes the lag less aim intensive as you don't have to aim quite as high, which indirectly improves your accuracy in the long run since you are aiming for center mass, the easiest spot to hit. Aiming lower also has the additional benefit of making you less vulnerable to drop shotters and slide peekers, as this reduces the risk of enemies ducking under your crosshair. Although, the Oden is stronger than the lag when it comes to challenging head glitches. When you go against a head glitching enemy, you can only see their head, chest and shoulders. Since the lag can't 2-tap to the shoulders, it will have a harder time in these encounters. The Oden doesn't have this problem. The main advantage that the lag has over the Oden is its 2-tap range. As previously mentioned, the lag can reliably 2-tap in the second damage phase, which gives it a much longer 2-tap range of 34.5 meters, which is a little over 10 meters longer than the Oden's and covers roughly 90% of the engagements it finds in standard multiplayer. The Oden can technically 2-tap at this range as well, but it is nowhere as consistent, since it doesn't have a stomach multiplier. So it's not that it doesn't happen, it's just something that you can't rely upon, unlike the lag. The lag also has the advantage in accuracy. The Oden does have better BSA, but the lags, especially after the buff, is not bad either, since it is still sufficient for most gunfights you'd find in standard multiplayer. However, the lag has much less recoil. I'd go as far as to say that it is tied with the ICR for some of the easiest recoil amongst assault rifles. The kick is extremely low and the pattern is very simple, going straight up for the first half before leaning slightly to the right for the rest of the spray. So you will have a much easier time beaming at range with the lag than with the Oden, which has noticeably more kick. Just like the Oden, the lag also has some useful utility. The high damage per shot allows you to 3-tap through walls with FMJ, making it one of the better assault rifles for dealing with enemies behind cover. The lag also has very high bullet impact, and thanks to the slower fire rate, each shot will deal that higher hit flinch, as it bypasses the flinch cooldown, so it can be very oppressive at mid to longer ranges. But remember, the lag is a side grade to the Oden, which means that these advantages come at a cost. In this case, it pays a steep price in terms of mobility. The lag 53 has the slowest movement speed in the entire assault rifle category, sprinting at 5.5 meters per second and strafing at 2.54 meters per second. To give you some context as to how slow the weapon is, this is not that much faster than the MG42. Yeah, this assault rifle is almost as slow as a proper belt-fed LMG. This means that if you want to get around the map, you will absolutely have to switch to your secondary, as you instantly gain 1000 pounds just from having this gun out. ADS time is also quite slow, being similar to that of the Odens at 336 milliseconds. So you will have to pre-aim quite often and are completely reliant on your 2-tap time to kill in closer ranges. Magazine capacity is smaller than the Odin's at 20. This might seem bad, but keep in mind that the lag is an extremely hard-hitting assault rifle that doesn't require many shots to kill, so its kills per mag is still perfectly manageable. However, the lag also reloads slower than the Oden, so it is still overall weaker in sustained gunfights. The lag also shares the exact same drawback that the Oden has, that being the fire rate. The lag has the slowest fire rate in the assault rifle category at 400 rounds per minute, slightly slower than the Oden. This means that missed shots are incredibly punishing, greatly increasing your time to kill for every additional shot required. So for the less accurate players out there, this gun isn't quite as suitable for you. So in conclusion, both the Oden and Lag 53 are slow firing 2-tap assault rifles that boast near unbeatable time to kill, but both weapons specialize in different areas. The Oden is the more flexible of the two, as its mobility is much better, and it features better sustainability with its larger mag and faster reload speed. The Oden also has the benefit of better build diversity, since you can build to be even faster at the cost of range. You can't do this with the lag. For most players, this is still the better overall option, as the current meta revolves around flexibility. There is a reason why guns like the PKM and RAL MG aren't used very often despite being very strong options. They just don't keep up pacing wise. The Lag 53 on the other hand specializes at longer ranges thanks to its much longer 2-tap range and lower recoil, making it more like a main assault rifle than the Oden. If you're a more passive player or find yourself playing slower with the Oden, then this is a really good option. But before we get into the build, we should talk about the Lag's unique attachment, the 13-inch OSW para barrel. This conversion barrel does look pretty interesting, and I'm sure most of you are curious about my thoughts on it. So basically, this barrel provides a list of upsides longer than my shopping list at Tesco. Slightly faster handling and mobility, improvements to range and bullet speed, very high bullet impact, faster fire rates, and the ability to one-tap to the head, all the way up to the second damage phase. All of this sounds very strong, perhaps a little too strong. So what's the catch? Well, this attachment comes with a negligible penalty to recoil, and most importantly converts the weapon into semi-automatic, effectively turning it into a DMR. Now, it isn't exactly fair to compare this with fully automatic such as the base lag or Oden, as the mechanical skill required to use a semi-automatic is much higher. So instead, I'll be comparing it to the most statistically similar weapon, which is, surprisingly enough, the newly added SO14. When you compare these weapons side by side with the optimal builds of course, you'll see that the SO14 has way faster mobility and handling. Even with the mobility buffs, the lag is still a slug, much better 2-tap consistency, faster reload speed, the benefit of full body disable since it is a marksman rifle and it is not subject to BSA, unlike the lag. So what does the lag have? Let's see. Slightly faster fire rate, but then again both weapons kill pretty fast, so that's not that much of a difference at this point. High bullet impact, but that's more like a bonus stat rather than something that makes it better. And it doesn't have idle sway, but this is not very useful considering that you hardly notice it anyway. As you can see here, the SO14 is much better than the lag in the stats that actually matter, so there isn't much of a reason to use it in semi-automatic. At least the base gun has a niche over the Oden. But if you like using semi-automatics or want to practice for the SO14 before you unlock it, this is definitely not the worst choice. Although I don't really see a reason as to why you wouldn't just use the Type 63 instead. When it comes to building the Lag 53, we'll be taking a cue from the Oden's passive build. Start with the monolithic suppressor for range and concealment, factory 18-inch aluminium, Americans, factory 18-inch aluminum stock for faster strafe speed, granulated grip tape for better BSA, FMJ so you can 3-tap through walls, and an optic of preference for better visibility. If you want faster ADS time, you can use the FSS close quarters stock instead. If you don't wallbang much, you can swap FMJ with sleight of hand for faster reload speeds, and if you don't mine the iron sights or have a good blueprint, you can replace the optic with either the 24-round mag or the RTC laser 1mW for better hipfire spread. If you want to use it in semi-automatic, just replace the perk slot with the 13-inch OSW para barrel. And that is my defense for the Lag 53. As for my personal thoughts on the weapon, I'm actually glad to see that we have a proper competitor to the Oden. One of my biggest complaints with the gun was the complete and utter lack of alternatives. Even if the lag with the buffs isn't exactly better than the Oden, it is a situational side grade that rewards a more passive playstyle, and this is what I find makes the weapon more interesting and fun to use. But that's just my experience from using the weapon, so what do you guys think about the Lag 53? And which do you prefer using, the Lag or the Oden? Feel free to let me know in the comments. And if you found the video helpful, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. According to YouTube analytics, less than 15% of you guys are actually subscribed. I think we can do a little better than that. Perhaps we can aim for 20%? But until then, I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye bye.